thank you. I really appreciate it. It has always been my privilege to work with educators who handle the extraordinary complexity of schools. And day schools are complex, and boarding schools are actually a little more complex just because everybody's there 24/7 and very intensely and emotionally connected. And it makes them powerfully interesting to me, and very grateful that I had the chance to work with you, and that we can look back and laugh at some of the things we unraveled together, and that I've had a chance to work now with the faculty at Avenues. I went and did a workshop for your children's teachers this summer in July, and there was such energy and enthusiasm, and it was a fun day. So I was very, very glad when Sarah Bain asked me to come back and speak to you. And my topic is a book I wrote called The Pressured Child, as you heard. And then there's that terrifying subtitle about helping your child achieve success in school and life. People have all kinds of, it's kind of a projective test what people are hoping for from the, I've had people come to this talk hoping they'll learn secrets of how to pressure their child more. So I'm never quite sure. So what's the pressure, 4 or 5 people, just really, what's the pressure you worry about, in all earnestness? What's the pressure you worry about the most on your kids?
Social pressure.
Social pressure. What age? You've got a middle schooler?
7th grader.
Yeah. Girl or boy?
Boy.
Okay. And it's pretty intense, huh?
It's finding your place.
Yeah.
Figuring out how they fit in.
Okay. Do you remember that in 7th grade? 6th grade, 5th for you? Yeah. It's crummy, isn't it? I mean, it is. That's a real pressure. That's a real pressure. In fact, for most of us, that's what middle school kind of felt it was about. I wrote The Pressured Child because I was concerned about parents who seem to have a model for childhood which doesn't conform to mine. And so you refer to, where does childhood fit in? And, well, let me give you an example. I had a father come to me once and he said, Dr. Thompson, he said, I'm very worried about my son. And I said, okay. He said, I've got to talk to you. And I said, okay, tell me what you're worried about. He said, he's so disorganized. My son is so disorganized. And I said, all right. Well, in what grade is your son? The first question I ask to any parent, because I can't think about a child unless I think about him in developmental scale. I said, what grade is your son? And the father said, 9th grade. And my thought was, hey, we got 4 years. I said, well, would you tell me what you're so worried about? And he said, globalization. And I thought, okay. So I said to this dad, tell me, when did you become an organized, self-sufficient student? They said, you don't want to know that. And I said, no, I really do. And he said, honestly? And I said, yes. And he said, well, junior year in college? Generally, I do get a number of men who say university. There's often a very big range, particularly in men. 7th grade to 1st year or 2nd year of graduate school sometimes. Or the man who says never, or the man who says when I got married, which is always. So the expectation is when is somebody going to get organized, and does globalization affect it? That sometimes our anxieties don't have much to do with what our kids are actually experiencing on the ground. I was at a school in northern New Jersey once, sadly a school that had out for about 2.5 weeks after Hurricane Sandy. I was there some years ago, and the day after Labor Day, which is the beginning of the year, and I was doing a workshop for the faculty, and the head of school said to me, I'd like to stay in your workshop, but there's been a set of parents besieging me, and my administrative assistant saying they have to talk to me today, so I'll see you at dinner. So I had dinner with the head of school, and I said, what was all that about? And he said, well, I thought I knew the family's name, but it turns out they were prospective parents who wanted to talk to the head of school about their daughter's admission for next fall for pre-K. So you have a family who's bombarding the head of school, and they are the parents of a 3-year-old. They want to talk about next school admissions. And now I'm not making fun of these parents or their love for their child, but the head of school was, I mean, I think they're trying to do the best for their child. I always believe that about parents. But this is what they thought if they were on top of it a year before she, started pre-K. And the head of school said, well, why do you want to send your child to, I won't use the real name of the school, Sunnybrook by the Sea is my favorite. My friend Ned Hallowell, who's also, he's your consulting psychiatrist. He calls all independent schools Sunnybrook by the Sea. So, and so the head said, why do you want to send your daughter to Sunnybrook by the Sea? And the father said, well, we've done the research of all of the independent school, elementary schools in northern New Jersey. You send the highest percentage of your graduates to Lawrenceville, and of all high schools in the United States, Lawrenceville sends the highest percentage of its graduates on to Princeton. So that's why we're here. What concerns me is that the father, though he's done research of a kind, has an image of childhood as if childhood were a career and you put the blocks in place, right? And if the father's there a year above when his daughter's still 3 and he's already putting the foundational blocks in place, he's improving the chances of her getting to Princeton. What's the matter with this picture? School childhood isn't actually a career. What we don't know about this little girl is whether she's going to be a good student, whether she's going to like school, whether she's going to like the rhythm and tempo of school. We don't know anything about her as a student, and we won't for a very long time. Actually, we won't know anything reliable about, not really valid and reliable about her IQ till she's 6 or 7, okay? So when people are rushing off to get their 4-year-olds tested, I always think, don't, actually, don't. Because it's not valid and reliable, and what your child will get is the impression of your anxiety and some feeling that the stakes are being ramped up. I was at a little school elementary school, independent elementary school in West Los Angeles, and it was on a high hillside looking over LA at night. You see that view from the movies. And a lot of movie stars' homes that they told me about were down the street. But it was just a sweet little independent school. And the head of school said to me, would you talk to my 6th grade? It ended in 6th grade. I said, why? And he said, my 6th grade is so anxious. I said, about what? And he said, the ISEEs, the next school tests, huh? And he said, I think almost all of the kids in my class are getting tutored. So I went in, there were 23 6th graders sitting there, and I said, how many of you have a test prep tutor? And 21 of them raised their hands. And I said, well, tell me what's average test prep? And they said 2 hours during the week and 2 hours on Saturday morning. So 4 hours of test prep a week. Now this isn't going to go on forever. It's just for the fall, but it's still 4 hours a week. So I said to the kids, and how many of you have a subject tutor, a second tutor? And 12 of them raised their hands. And I said, well, how many of you have 3 tutors? And 2 kids raised their hand. There was a very sort of organized looking girl in the front row, and there was a very spacey boy in the back. And I like spacey boys, so I called on him and I said, tell me about your tutors. And he said, well, I have a test prep tutor, and then I have a reading tutor, because I'm not all that good at reading and I don't like it that much. And then I have a, he said, I can't remember what the 3rd tutor's for. And I've been around the block in independent schools, so I said, is it an organization tutor? He said, that's it. Right? I forgot my organization tutor. Okay? Now, it turned out this little boy had tutor 6 days a week. And I said to him, if you weren't being tutored so much, what would you do? And he said, I'd love to ride my bike. And so I took a risk and told the story that night at that school. And risking that his parents might be in the audience. And they indeed were. And his mom got my email, and she wrote me, and she said, it was very poignant to hear my son's life described by you. Because she said, I grew up in a small town. I rode my bike to school. I always had time to ride my bike. She said, I was so moved by your talk, I went home and fired 2 of the tutors. Right? Maybe the organization tutor her son couldn't even remember. And maybe at that point she was willing to let this school teach her son reading. 6th grade boys who don't like reading aren't that rare. But I'm sure she kept the test prep tutor, because these kids were, as a group, phenomenally frightened and anxious. And I said, there was one, just worried, sort of crumpled in girl. And I said, what are you so worried about? And she said, there'll be no school for me next year. Now, who told her that? Who told her? That's a parent. Because the parent is thinking, if I create a scarcity model, it'll motivate my child.